Hey everybody, welcome back to another painting tutorial on Tabletop Anarchy. Today it is time for the Messerschmitt 109s for Blood Red Skies. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial and I hope it helps. Once your model is ready to paint, it's time to put a quick primer down, and for this I used a light grey. The first paint you want to use is Spaceship Exterior, and this paint you want to do the underside of the plane, so one of the wings and the body. Again, as always, I always put a few drops of water in just to help it improve its flow, and this took 2 coats to cover the model. So once that step is complete, it's time to move on to the next one. The next paint you want to grab is Ash Grey, and this colour you want to apply to the rest of the model that you haven't already painted with Spaceship Exterior. Being a light colour again, I mixed it with a few drops of water and put a few coats on, because it does take a few more coats to cover. But once that has dried, it's time to move on to the next step. Using the previous colour of Ash Grey in your mixing palette, I added a very small amount of Necromancer Cloak just to take it a couple of shades darker, and I applied that colour to the top of the wings. At this point it was very easy to go too dark, so I do recommend, start off with small amounts and just keep adding and mixing until you get the desired colour. Using the previous colour in your mixing palette, I added a few more drops of Necromancer Cloak, and I applied that to the top part of the model, about sort of a third of the way down. And I did sort of dry brush it on. I did take a lot of excess off on a piece of tissue, because it is quite a small model. If you put too much paint on your brush, you can ruin it. So just take a lot of the excess off and just lightly brush it over the top until you get the desired effect. Using the same colour as you've just used to do the top of the plane, it's now time to put some stripes on the top of the wings. For this I used a small dry brush instead of masking tape, because obviously the masking tape, it can, by the time you mask it off, you can pretty much get these stripes done. I recommend you get a reference photo. I did have one in front of me, so I sort of roughly followed it as best as I can. But once you've done the stripes on that, it's time to move on to the next step. Next, you want to grab yourself a small paintbrush and the previous coat you've just used for the top of the plane and the stripes on the wings. Take most of the excess paint off onto a piece of tissue and start to do the mottle effect on the side of the 109. It's quite easy when you've got a reference photo in front of you, because you'll have a rough idea of what it should look like. But basically just sort of do it in little flares and little patterns in the paint, and you want to apply that to the whole side of the model. It's time to go back and get a bit of Ash Grey. Same sort of technique, take most of the excess off onto a piece of tissue, and now you just want to brush that lightly over the whole side of the model now to really try and blend that in. If it doesn't look right at the minute, don't worry about it, because by the time you get your wash on it, it will blend it in a bit more. But you just basically want to break up the harsh lines of the dark greys, and then once that's finished, it's time to move on to the next step. It's now time to tackle the yellow parts on the 109, and that is the nose and the section of the tail. In the past I've struggled with yellow paints, but I found this technique works far better than most paints you can buy. So what you need to do is get yourself skeleton bone and paint all the areas that eventually will be yellow. Give it a couple of coats to get some good coverage, and then we'll move on to the next step. While I was waiting for the previous coat to dry, I quickly applied Griffon Blue to do the canopy. It's now time to finish off the yellow parts on the 109, and for that you will need Casandon Yellow from Citadel. It's one of their glazes, so it does work slightly like a wash, so to watch the recesses because it can pull quite a bit. But basically just apply that over the skeleton bone areas, and that's all the yellow parts finished. Once all the coats of paint had dried, I went ahead and put the decals on. I didn't go into any detail in this tutorial. I do go into a lot more in the Mitsubishi Zeros and the Yak tutorials, so go back and watch those, but put a clear coat on once you're finished, and then it's time for the washes. The final step now is to put a quick wash over, and for that I used Quickshade Dark Tone and it's mixing medium, roughly 50-50 mix. Apply that over the entire model and let it dry, and at this point now it will help blend all those greys together on the side of the plane. But once that wash is dried, that's the tutorial finished. That wraps up the tutorial for today, so I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it helps. If you've got any questions, comments, or any tutorials you want me to cover, stick it in the comments below. But as always, if you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe, and we hope to see you in the war room soon.